Survivors, seekers, and thrivers, welcome to Transcending Trauma, a spiritual odyssey. I'm Shari Lee Roberts, living proof that transformation is real. Get ready for powerful insights, inspiring stories, and a little laughter along the way.
I am privileged today to have Dr. Lucinda Sykes here. She is an expert in helping people get proper sleep. And for me, personally, I went years without sleep. It was a time of trauma and divorce, and I could not sleep. I would love for you to share how you came to be an expert. Know all that you do.
Well, thank you for this warm welcome. I'm so glad to be here. When I read about yourself and your audience, I thought it's just my audience too. Yes, because we know that a history of trauma makes us sleep sensitive. And the paradox is that deepening and supporting our sleep is often an important part of the path ahead. And it's so I'm so glad to be here. My personal story goes back to my childhood, where none of the women in my family were able to sleep. And by gosh, that was my destiny too, it seemed. But I was so fortunate when I first started medical school and I was having sleep troubles. I'd moved to the big city and I got some excellent psychotherapy and other assistance. And then, by gosh, I got so interested in sleep that, long story short, I'm sleeping well these days. But I have a great interest in sleep. And as I say, the research, again and again, we have dozens of research papers pointing to the fact that if you have suffered trauma, especially in the earlier years of your life, then your sleep is vulnerable. And further, the sleep problems can often resurrect in midlife. So maybe there was childhood trauma, for example, and you've kind of put that behind you, or at least hoping you've done so. And then in midlife, your sleep becomes more troublesome. And then the research goes on to say that this often precedes an accelerated physical decline as well. And the scientists suggesting that the increase in physical decline in midlife can actually be an outcome of the sleep problems, which are possibly, again, science doesn't say things definitively, it says likely, and that in midlife, we start to have more sleep problems with a childhood experience of trauma, because that's about the time when we are vulnerable to changes in sleep. It's natural in midlife to have changes in your sleep. And if you have for many years had a vulnerability in sleep, then it can certainly become apparent to you in midlife. So,
Excellent. Let's go back and break it down using your
yes.
experience. So take us back to your childhood.
Oh, yes. Well, as a child, I was sleeping well, and my family had issues. So many families do. But I had my dear mother and my dear grandmother, and both of them had sleep problems. I used to, as a little girl, go to the drugstore and get my sleeping pills for my grandmother, and she every night took sleeping pills. And I have to, this is part of why I'm on the road now talking about sleep and especially warning people about the risks of sleeping pills. The
Yeah.
research is unequivocal. Sleeping pills predispose to Alzheimer's disease, and my poor grandmother did succumb to early onset Alzheimer's. And as well, there's an association of shortened life expectancy and even, my goodness, cancer and heart disease and so on for people who are taking sleeping pills. And this is not my personal opinion, it's there in the research. And I'm rather exasperated with my profession that sleeping pills are still being overprescribed. If you want to improve your sleep, do not turn to sleeping pills. And by gosh, if you have become a little dependent on sleeping pills, your first step is to, reduce your dependence on sleeping pills so that ideally you're no longer taking them. Because you see, your body knows how to sleep. Your body knows how to sleep, and it is the body that takes us into sleep. It's not the mind. You cannot tell yourself to sleep, but you can by establishing a good relationship with your physical self, then sleep starts to return.
Give us examples of how we can establish that. So often we're told, do this, do
Yes.
that, and
Yes.
we have no idea how.
Yes.
So please
Yes.
tell us how.
Yes, I'm very happy to answer this question. In a way, improving your sleep is a complicated matter. And
Yes.
many different remedies can be helpful for many different people. And that's part of how the confusion begins. And the experts can have their particular hobby horse. And if that hobby horse will let you ride, then you're in luck. But if their hobby horse is not quite the best one for you, then you're even more frustrated. Basically, you could consider to improve your sleep, you have two baskets. One is the basket of, we call the old fashioned term is sleep hygiene, establishing behaviors and an environment that support sleep. And sleep science has done us a very good job in telling us about that. For example, establishing a routine, bedtime, and avoiding stimulants, avoiding alcohol, stop the sleeping pills if, eventually, and so on. Even your family doctor will tell you about sleep hygiene. The problem often is, however, that it's difficult to follow those precepts. But if you are motivated, sleep hygiene is not to be dismissed. As well, the second basket is how you cope with an episode of sleeplessness. Just underscore, sleep hygiene is not a way to remedy, gosh, I can't sleep. You pull out your sleep hygiene list and follow those tips. No, sleep hygiene is a lifestyle. As I mentioned early on, I was having sleep problems. I established a sleep hygiene lifestyle, and then over time, my sleep turned around and never was a trouble again. But it does take a bit of perseverance. Your family doctor, and even online now, you can find sleep hygiene tips. By the way, listeners to our podcast here, you're very welcome to download my Happy Sleep Secrets. It's a PDF that will give you basic instructions in sleep hygiene tips.
Tell us what your tips are. I
Well,
don't want to download. I just am listening to
yes,
this podcast.
yes.
So share what you did to sleep.
I wish I had 3 hours with you. Yeah, I wish I had 3 hours. That would give me a chance to summarize. And the reason I'm kind of moving quickly through sleep hygiene is because the information is widely available and it's pretty straightforward. For example, don't drink coffee after 2 p.m, this kind of thing. And I followed sleep hygiene. I would be unable to tell you which was the most useful tip because that was decades ago. And I just live that lifestyle now. I don't live a lifestyle which undermines my sleep. Now, the second basket, Sherry, is this idea of how to deal with an episode of sleeplessness. What do you do when you're unable to sleep? And that's where things can become confusing. That's where we start to get into often what sleep science calls the efforting mind, the mind of effort. You're telling yourself to sleep. My clients will say, Lucinda, I was trying to sleep and it wasn't working. Now, when you are trying to sleep, you are, without realizing it, you are giving yourself a stress reaction. Whenever we try anything, we have a bit of stress on board, don't we? And if you're lying there in bed trying to sleep without realizing it, you're making it more difficult to sleep. When we truly want to sleep, we surrender. We allow ourselves and the situation to be as it is. It's not ideal, but we allow ourselves to surrender, and then the body is able to come in and help us into sleep. That's why, just in the short time we have left, I'll just quickly look at strategies that you can use when you cannot sleep. Because I don't want to be here saying, folks, avoid trying to get to sleep. And then people will be trying to not try to get to sleep. That's how the human mind is. We have ambition, even if it's an ambition not to have ambition.
Yeah.
So if you are unable to sleep, and this is not my personal opinion, you'll find this in teachings of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia and also mindfulness. When you are unable to sleep, give it a few minutes. You are safe in your bed, I hope. I hope it's a comfortable place. You're not in a rush. Just lie, place your hands maybe resting comfortably on your chest or your abdomen, and just be there for a couple of minutes. Don't be looking at the clock. It's so disturbing to be watching time pass. But then maybe after 10 or so minutes, you realize, gosh, it looks like I'm not going to fall asleep right now. Here's a couple of tips. Number one, and many of my clients love this one, turn on a sleep story recording. Sleep stories now are quite widely available. You could go on YouTube or even go to calm.com and other sites that will give you recordings. Sleep stories are designed to help adults relax and get to sleep. You find a beautiful voice, sometimes it's even an actor, who will read you or tell you a story. It's not an exciting story, but it has lots of sensory detail and pleasant experiences. And very often you will find that you drift off to sleep. I'd advise you don't get one of those meditation recordings, because then you're going to be sitting or lying there trying to meditate. And by gosh, you'll be stressed out because you think you're not meditating and so on. Instead, a sleep story will relax you. If you are a spiritual or religious person, you might like to listen to a recording of your scriptures. That will also be of assistance. You want to be listening to something that you don't need to think about, that doesn't give you any goals. You can simply let the story waft over you. However, another option, again, we find this in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. After about 15 minutes or so, if you aren't sleeping, no problem. Just get out of bed. You want to keep the lights low and find a comfortable place in your home where you can relax. And relax is important. You want to then do a task or an activity which is relaxing. I had one lady who loves to read children's books, and she had a whole library of children's books, and she would lie, the lights are low, do not be using screens. You don't want to be using Kindle. You want to have an old-fashioned book, and then relax and read this that's calming or of interest to you. Or maybe you like to do puzzles. I had another lady who had a table where she would put out a puzzle, and this is old fashioned now, jigsaw puzzles, and she would do puzzles. Another lady liked to fold her laundry. She liked to fold the laundry. She liked the fragrance of the laundry and so on. And you get the picture. You want a calming activity that doesn't require that you be ambitious or learn anything. And then almost guaranteed, you check it out, after a while, you're going to get sleepy. And then you'll want to go back to bed. But don't rush it. Because here's the thing, missing a few of time of sleep, maybe a few hours, maybe you're going to miss the rest of the night of sleep. In the long scheme of things, it's not a big deal. You don't need to become stressed. The attitude of trying to get to sleep, getting frustrated and angry at yourself, all of that is self-defeating. And it's also part of our culture. I must tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this frustration of trying to get to sleep is very much part of our, shall we say, Western culture. Some studies now have done interviews with seniors in, I'm thinking now of a paper that came out in 2022, interviews with the Maori, that's the indigenous peoples of New Zealand. The researchers interviewed these Maori elders, and it wasn't an issue for them at all. They would say things like, "Oh, when you get older, you don't sleep as long," and they understood that this was a time for spiritual or cultural practice. So one man was carving masks, and he was happy. He was fine. It wasn't a big problem. Whereas, again, the same paper I'm telling you of, they interviewed people who were of European extraction. Those people were often very frustrated about their sleep. They thought they had a medical problem. They wanted to go to their doctor. And once you get to the doctor, that's often where you get the pills. And it becomes a self-perpetuating issue. Whereas the Maori, this was just what it was to be an elder. And it was not a problem for them. It was a problem of attitude. And this could be happening for at least some of the members of our audience here right now.
True. In closing, what would you like to say?
I would invite your audience to see sleep as a time to get close and friendly with your non-conscious side, the hidden mind. You see, when you are sleeping, you don't go away. It's true that the thinking mind leaves, but the fullness of yourself is still here. That's why we don't want to use sleeping pills, because the sleeping pills sedate the brain and we lose an important part of our experience. But if you're truly sleeping, you are now being close with your non-conscious mind. You're being close with your body, and it's actually an opportunity to foster healing. And no matter what the details of the trauma are that you're continuing to recover from, an episode of sleep turmoil, sleeplessness, is actually an opportunity to be friends with yourself, to accept, to have compassion, to even sort of snuggle in close with yourself, even while your mind wants to disturb you with ideas, I should get to sleep, what's wrong with me, it's always like this, and so on. Those are just disturbing thoughts, and they're not true. Happy sleeping.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Transcending Trauma, the Spiritual Odyssey. If you're working to overcome trauma and would like to work with me or be a guest on my show, contact me through my website at shariroberts.org. Please hit the follow button to make sure you don't miss any episodes. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn at Shari Roberts. You can find all the links in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. I'm Shari Roberts, your host, reminding you that you're never alone. Until next time, sending you love and light.